the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ya Allah, we gather here today with humble hearts in your name, seeking your divine guidance and blessing for this important occasion, the launch of strategic framework for term and condition of service for our National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and the National Youth Service. We begin by thanking you, Allah, for the leadership of this nation, for the wisdom and vision bestowed upon His Excellency, the President of Kenya, and the commitment of all those who serve this country. We ask that you continue to guide our leaders from highest offices to those on the front line of service, so that they may always seek justice, fairness, and betterment of all people. Ya Allah, you are the just, and we ask you to bless the implementation of this framework so that it may bring about fairness in compensation, dignity in service, and justice for all who dedicate their lives to the security and prosperity of this nation. Guide the hands and hearts of those who tasked with ensure the welfare of our NPS officers, PS officers, and NY officers, that they may work with integrity, wisdom, and compassion. Ya Allah, grant us the endeavor. Ya Allah, may your mercy and blessing be upon us. Amen. Amen.
Let's pray. Dear Almighty God, we come before your presence this afternoon, humbled before you, who is holy, the creator of heaven and earth. Receive all the glory, honor, and adoration. As we are gathered here to unveil the strategic framework for implementation of terms and conditions of service for the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and National Youth Service, be with us. Proverbs 16:1. Preparations of the heart belongs to the man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. May you allow your presence to be with us throughout this event. Dear God, I commit all security agencies into your able hand, that you may guide their vision regarding the security of this nation. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the heart of the Lord. Like rivers of water, he turns it wherever he wishes. Dear God, the heart of His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, is with you. Always guide him. May you sustain him in your perfect peace. And we pray this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Let us kindly take our seats. Your Excellency, the President of this great nation and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and National Administration, Honorable Kithure Kindiki, the Cabinet Secretary, Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Honorable Justin Muturi, Principal Secretaries present, the British High Commissioner, Your Excellency Neil Wigan, Acting Inspector General, National Police Service, Mr. Gilbert Masengeli, DIG Kenya Police Service, Mr. Eliud Lagat, Director of Criminal Investigation, Mr. Mohammed Amin, Commissioner General, Kenya Prison Service, Mr. Patrick Arandi, Commandant General, National Youth Service, Mr. James Tembur, representatives from the United States and Germany, UNHCR country representative, senior officers, National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and National Youth Service, senior government officials. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me to now invite the Principal Secretary, Interior, Dr. Raymond Omolo, to come and make some brief remarks and run the rest of the program. Why don't we give him a warm welcome with a hand clap as he approaches. Welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Dr. William Ruto, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, PS colleagues, the heads of various delegations representing our partners, the Acting Inspector General of Police, and the heads of all the various services. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon once again. Your Excellency, I want to begin first by appreciating the honor that you've given the three services to come and preside over the launch of the strategic framework for the service. And as we do so today, it speaks to your commitment that you gave at the beginning of your administration, first by setting up the task force that was led by Chief Justice retired Maraga. And out of that, then you did give us the marching orders to begin the process of working on the implementation of a number of those reforms. Your Excellency, before I continue, I would want to invite the UNDP resident coordinator just to make a few remarks, and then we continue with the rest of the program on behalf of all the other partners that have worked with us, not just in this journey, but also in the previous instances. Anthony, welcome.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, William Samoei Ruto, ministers, PSs, service chiefs, friends, good morning or good afternoon once again. My name is Anthony Ngororano. I'm the representative of UNDP Kenya. A great privilege for us to walk this journey with Kenya. And I want maybe just to share a few things. The first is really the insight. So UNDP for the last 60 or so years has walked the journey of security sector reform. Three things that we see in the plan and in the framework. One is the question of a people-centered approach. The second is this question of coordinated implementation of service delivery, a whole-of-government approach as well. I think this is evidenced by all assembled. The question of measuring success and the whole question of commitment and funding. In terms of UNDP, I know the UK and a number of others, there are 4 areas in which our support is focused. The first is in strengthening institutional capacities. The second is enhancing accountability and oversight. The third, which I think is critical, is the promotion of behavioral change. And this is really, for us, the touch point in which we are going to be funneling the bulk of our support. And lastly, the question of community engagement. And so we really want to commend and congratulate the ministry, but also the government of Kenya on this important milestone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Excellency, may I also invite the Vice Chair of the National Police Service Commission on behalf of the constitutional officers to also just make a few remarks.
Your Excellency the President, CSS present, PSS present, Solicitor General, the commanders, and all officers, good afternoon. As you have heard, my name is Dr. Otwala of the National Police Service Commission, and we are here, Your Excellency, to say that we support the process and that we are willing to work with the agencies that are represented. And if you allow me, sir, a few seconds, just the commissioners to stand wherever they are. We have, I think, 3 commissions represented today that are working in this process. And those are the commissioners of the National Police Service Commission, our CEO. I thought I saw SRC, and of course, Banis, and the others. We have discussed, we are part of the framework, and we are ready to support, and as far as we can go. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Your Excellency, allow me to introduce and just ask my colleagues, PSS and accounting officers responsible for the different state departments to stand up so that I can acknowledge and we have you appreciated. So we have the Solicitor General, Shadrach Mose. We have PS Salome Biako in charge of correctional services. We have PS Amos Gadecha in charge of public service. We have PS Aurelia Rono in charge of parliamentary affairs, and PS Salim Dokota in charge of cabinet affairs. Your Excellency, in this gathering today, we also have officers from the 3 services, together with the national government administration officers at the region and at the counties. So we have the county police commanders, we have the county commissioners, same to the regional commissioners and the regional commanders. So it's a full house, and what they will be waiting to hear from you is what we've all known in terms of your commitment to the delivery of the changes within the 3 services in question. Your Excellency, I want to report that as we sit here today, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior did gazette the National Steering Committee that is going to be responsible for the implementation of the recommendations that came from the Maraga Task Force. And there's a lot of work that has gone in, and there is still a lot of work that we will be undertaking. Your Excellency, I don't want to say more than that. Allow me to invite the CS for Public Service to come and make his remarks, and subsequently invite the CS for Interior. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. Samoei William Ruto, the CS Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, Inspector General of Police, Commissioner General of Prisons, the Commandant General of the National Youth Service, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me an honor to stand before you today at this momentous occasion, which is the official launch of the strategic framework for the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and the National Youth Service. Your Excellency, today we embark on an important chapter in the transformation of our security and youth service sectors with the full support and leadership of Your Excellency. Allow me to begin by expressing my gratitude to you, Your Excellency, for your steadfast commitment to improving the terms and conditions and the overall well-being of those who dedicate their lives to serving our great nation. Your Excellency, your visionary leadership has been instrumental in the formation of the National Task Force on the improvement of the terms and conditions of service for the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and National Youth Service, which was appointed by yourself, Your Excellency, on the 21st of December 2022, barely 3 months into office. The task force has brought about crucial reforms that will not only improve the lives of our service personnel, but also strengthen the institutions that uphold the safety, security, and the development of our nation. Your Excellency, one of the most profound aspects of this task force was your decision to include the National Youth Service as part of the reform process. And Your Excellency, I may mention it here that I do know for a fact you are extremely passionate about the functions undertaken by the National Youth Service. That decision underscored your unwavering commitment to empowering the youth of Kenya and recognizing their central role in the country's future. The National Youth Service plays a pivotal role in national development, instilling a sense of patriotism, discipline, and service in our youth. Through this task force, Your Excellency, we've set the stage to not only improve the working conditions of the NYS officers, but also ensure that the service continues to thrive as a training ground for the future leaders of this nation. On behalf of this entire NYS community, Your Excellency, I extend our deepest gratitude for your continued belief in the potential of Kenya's youth. The National Task Force embarked on a thorough review of the existing challenges within the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and the National Youth Service. The task force put forward 117 recommendations aimed at transforming these institutions and enhancing the welfare of the officers. The recommendations were categorized into 3 key areas, being 65 recommendations for immediate or administrative action, 25 recommendations that require changes in law or policy to facilitate their implementation, and 27 recommendations that require funding for their successful execution. I'm pleased to report that tremendous progress has been made in the implementation of these recommendations, that 4 policies have been developed that will guide the reform process, addressing various aspects such as training, welfare, working conditions, and operational effectiveness. These policies include a solid foundation for the continued transformation of the National Service. Your Excellency, I am proud to announce that 95% of the implementation process is already underway, which is a significant achievement within the short period since the report was released. Among the most notable achievements is the implementation of Phase 1 of salary improvements for the National Service officers and all the others. This phase has brought immediate relief and improvements in the livelihoods of the National Service personnel, reflecting our commitment to recognizing their invaluable contribution to the nation. However, there remain 3 critical allowances, which I am informed, Your Excellency, include the service allowance, instructors' allowances, high-risk allowance for officers stationed in high-risk areas such as Garissa, Balambala, Witu, and Hindi Field Unit, which borders the Boni Forest. These officers operate in highly challenging environments, and it is only fair that their risks and dedication are appropriately compensated. We are optimistic that the necessary budgetary allocations will be made to address these allowances, ensuring that these officers are rewarded for their service in protecting the nation's most vulnerable regions. With these reforms in place, Your Excellency, we will witness an even greater impact from the National Service in areas such as public works, environmental conservation, and the national security support. As we move forward, Your Excellency, the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development remains fully committed to ensuring the successful implementation of the task force's recommendations. We will continue to collaborate with all stakeholders involved, working tirelessly to secure the necessary funding, legislative adjustments, and policy support required to complete the transformation of these critical institutions. In conclusion, Your Excellency, I wish to thank you for presiding over this important occasion and for your ongoing leadership in shaping the future of our security and youth service sectors. The task force's recommendations, combined with the policies already in place, will drive continued improvements across the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and the National Service, ensuring that our officers and youth are well prepared and well supported in their duties. I thank you, Excellency, and at this moment, Your Excellency, allow me to invite my brother and my colleague, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Coordination and National Administration, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, all the other colleagues from government, officers uniformed and not uniformed, development partners, and Your Excellency, we even have civil society representatives here. And other than the National Police Service Commission, we also have 2 other independent commissions represented here. That is the SRC, Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and the Public Service Commission. All protocols observed. Your Excellency, we are very happy today because on 21st December 2023, actually 2022, within 100 days, as you had promised when you were seeking election as President of Kenya, you formed a task force to look at security sector reforms and improvement of terms and conditions of our men and women who serve in the security sector to protect our country from crime and from other threats. And Your Excellency, you did that, and the task force, which was headed by retired Chief Justice David Baraga, took a bit of time because we wanted them to do a thorough job. The terms of reference were extensive, quite expansive, and November last year, 2023, they presented their report to you. Subsequently, you directed us to immediately start the implementation of that process. And Your Excellency, we are happy to report that so far we've covered some ground because some of the recommendations are administrative and do not require even financial or other things. And therefore, your support today by gracing this occasion to formally now launch the implementation strategic program is very crucial to us, and we are very excited that you got time to come and speak to us. Your Excellency, we were here 2-3 weeks ago, and you directed us further to also look at some of the other things that are not captured already in the ongoing work, especially around the National Government Administration System, which is a significant and important link to the whole of government and whole of security sector delivery. We are working on those directives, mainly on working with the Inspector General of Police to make sure that the police support the work that the national government administration officers do out there in the protection of our country and in the maintenance of peace and harmonious coexistence of the citizens of Kenya. We are already underway with that directive, and we'll be producing, we'll be briefing you. You also directed us, Your Excellency, to also include reform issues on GAO, to also modernize their training, their orientation, so that they can align with the entire framework of a modern, more efficient, and output, or a system that can help this country take the people to the next level. Your Excellency, I want to say two things before I invite you. The first one is that the task force, the recommendations are quite expansive, and they are going to cost the government of Kenya quite a bit, especially in these times when our fiscal space is not great. We are grateful so far through your leadership and directives. We have started off on some of even the more difficult issues like welfare issues, but also other issues like modernization of equipment, especially for the police. And we hope that going forward in the coming years, we will also be touching on the other services that are represented. So we are grateful. It's quite an expensive venture, but it is worth it. This country, for it to realize socio-economic development, for this country to move to the next level, we require stability, a secure environment for investors, local and foreign, and a society that is cohesive. For that reason, Your Excellency, we are grateful for the sacrifice you made and the leadership you provided. The second and last point, which I want to make, Your Excellency, is to say that security anywhere in the world is a sensitive issue. It's not an easy matter to be able to put together all the competing issues and interests of the country and maintain security. And therefore, this whole of government coordinated approach is the solution and the pathway that will help us realize and balance all the competing interests that we need to balance to ensure that the reforms that we implement are reforms that are people-centered, anchored on our Constitution, and they are reforms that reflect the national interest in its collectivity. And I'm very proud today, Your Excellency, that Kenya, as one of the, if you look at our constitutional architecture for the security sector, as quite a very democratic security sector compared to even some of the older democracies. And I think it's the right thing that we chose under this constitution to have this kind of forward-looking and modern security, people-centered security infrastructure. I want to assure you, under your leadership, from where we sit with my colleagues, both my colleague CS JB Muturi and the other colleagues who are working with us in this enterprise, uniformed and uniformed, we will deliver a people-centered, participatory, open, transparent, and efficient security environment that will help this country realize its socio-economic and cultural objectives as underpinned in our Constitution. Your Excellencies, today is not my day. This is your day. I therefore want to request our colleagues to be upstanding as we invite His Excellency the President to address us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. Members of Cabinet present, Principal Secretaries, development partners, friends. It is with immense privilege to be with you at this meeting whose outcome will open the door to many positive changes for the good of present and future generations. The sector represented here is not only essential for national security, but it is also fundamental to the rule of law and public order, and therefore a pillar of our constitutionalism and a foundation of our democracy and prosperity. I therefore address you as a critical turning point in our nation's journey as we take the transformative step of reshaping our National Police Service, National Prison Service, and National Youth Service into bastions of integrity and efficiency that Kenyans want, have struggled for, and deserve. When I talk about transformation, I do not merely refer to major improvements, but a rebirth, which will necessitate a fundamental redefinition of how our security services operate and interact with the communities they have sworn to protect and to serve. In keeping with our undertaking under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, we embarked on this path in December 2022 by commissioning the National Task Force on Improvement of Terms and Conditions of Service for members of the National Police Service, the Kenya Prisons Service, and the National Youth Service, commonly known as the Maraga Task Force. It was mandated to investigate the systemic institutional challenges hampering our security services and chart a new strategic pathway that promotes integrity, dignity, and respect, and improves the terms and conditions of service for our officers, This was done in the belief that it is and it would complement other efforts to develop our security system into an efficient service guided by the ethos of citizen service and respect for the rule of law. The findings of the task force revealed several issues, including obsolete policies and outdated practices, weak leadership, underfunding, and most concerning of all, rampant corruption and numerous forms of gross malpractices, as well as poor human capital development, in many instances low pay, poor working and living conditions, inappropriate tools and equipment, and lack of support for welfare concerns. As a result, trust between the public and the security services, which is indispensable for national security and the rule of law, had been severely eroded. Guided by the task force recommendations, the government of Kenya has initiated a series of reforms, beginning with a 40% salary increase for the lowest ranks of services, aimed at achieving significant qualitative transformation of our nation's security services. We appreciate the considerable financial implication of the full implementation of the changes prescribed by the Maraga Task Force. It is estimated that it will cost Kenya shillings 106 billion to fully actualize these recommendations. Of this, 22 billion will finance improvement in compensation package for officers, while 37 billion will go to the upgrading of hardware as well as welfare reforms, and 45 billion is required to implement modernization of the services. To ensure that our commitment to overhaul these crucial institutions is accompanied with the necessary resources, the required funds will largely be provided for from the Exchequer and from various other partners whom we will engage. Without doubt, the recommended reforms will also require comprehensive institutional changes, beginning with legislation and, in many instances, some policy changes. Consequently, we are undertaking sweeping reforms of existing laws and introducing new ones that will form the backbone of a revamped national security framework. The National Police Service Act, the National Police Service Commission Act, and several other foundational laws will be revised to align with contemporary needs and standards. And so will the legislation that will include the Kenya Correctional Services Bill and the National Forensic Science Laboratory Services Bill, which will also provide the necessary legal structures to support the changes that have been proposed. And we will be implementing this to modernize the security services and propel them to the highest standards of policing and best practice. To provide for seamless, expeditious, and effective progress in the task at hand, I make the following directives. First, the institutional arrangements necessary for the implementation of reforms shall be facilitated by respective ministries, departments, and agencies. Any changes and any challenges encountered during the implementation phase shall be addressed and resolved without delay through the established mechanism, and the gazettement of this particular implementation committee will provide the necessary nexus between all the agencies to make sure that issues that stand out are resolved. Any challenges encountered in any manner shall be forwarded to this committee. Further, I direct that development of policies and legislative reforms must be inclusive and must be participatory. The provision for public participation in our Constitution is no longer a sterile provision. It is a live provision that demands that the public be involved in how they want to see the services, whether it's police service or the national service or the correctional service in the next form. I am also very happy that we now have a public participation bill in the House that will create the requisite standards for public participation to be undertaken on all policy and legislation that will be undertaken by our Parliament. It is also essential that the National Police Service, Kenya Prison Service, and National Youth Service complete the development of their respective modernization strategies and plans within the next 3 months. I know there was a suggestion that this be undertaken over the next 6 months. I think 3 months is sufficient so that we can begin to figure out how what was recommended by the Maraga Task Force can be brought into being. Accordingly, the National Treasury will make adequate provision for funding to implement these interventions. Beyond legislation, we are also drafting new policies and revising old ones in order to redefine our national security landscape and chart a path to the future that is fully aligned with our constitutional framework as well as aspirations as a nation. The public order management policy, community policing policy, and the National Correctional Service policy will not merely be the guide for our officers, but will be the strategies aimed at ushering in a new era of community engagement and community cooperation. These policies are designed to forge a strong partnership between our security services and the community by building trust and enhancing cooperation between the public and law enforcement officers and agencies. As we move forward with these reforms, I urge each one of you to fully come on board and join in mobilizing the people of Kenya to take part in this transformative journey. And in my opinion, already we have undertaken some of the recommendations that were made by the Maraga Task Force, and they will largely be in 3 different categories as the committee undertakes this implementation responsibility. Institutional reform. We are looking at a police service, a national youth service, a prison service that is fit for purpose to deal with the challenges and to live up to the expectations of the people of Kenya in the 21st century. And therefore, the institutional reforms that have been recommended by the Maraga Task Force are a major cornerstone and pillar of the future of the 3 services and how the security service architecture will be built, focusing into a much more people-centered security service that is in line with our expectations and the constitutional parameters of respecting human rights and making sure that we safeguard the rule of law as a mechanism of underwriting our democracy and constitutionalism. So institutional reform is going to be a very big portion, and recommendations on policy, recommendations on legislation that needs to be amended is critical to the delivery of this recommendation of the Maraga Task Force. The other focus must be on the human capital development and responding to the needs, the requirements, the capabilities, and the general terms of service of the men and women who are charged with this sector. It will go all the way to what we are discussing about the salaries, allowances, housing, transport, and many of the other aspects that are necessary for making sure that we get the best output out of the men and women who serve in this sector. We have started the journey with the first installment of salary reviews. We will be looking at the other allowances that come with it. And we will also be looking at career progression so that there is a career progression pathway that has always been a challenge. You know, an officer, we were given the example of an officer that is hired, and for 20 years, they are stuck in the same job group. That going forward is not going to be the case. There must be a clear career pathway so that everybody who joins the service has clarity on where they want to go, and they can work hard towards it to make sure that that career progression, continuous training is part of the available pathways for the people joining either the prison service or the National Youth Service or our police service. And the third aspect is going to be the space around equipment, around making sure that we have the requisite tools for the delivery of the job and the mandate for which the services have been assigned. And this will include capabilities around transportation, capabilities around communication, capabilities that will speak to digitization of the services that we are engaged in. And my very clear instructions is, as we digitize government services, we must onboard the digitization of police services, National Youth Service, and also our prison service. The legendary OB must be in digital form so that it is known if a Kenyan has been booked for whatever reason, it must be documented in a manner that cannot be tampered with. And I know there has been a process of digitizing our OB and the whole front, the citizen-facing front of our National Police Service. That is an exercise that I would want to see completed in the shortest time possible so that we can have much more predictability. I would also want to see the payment of fines digitized, instant fines, and all the other things that occur around payments. We must stop the culture of dealing in cash. We are moving, we've moved away, and shortly we will have a cashless government that does not engage in the business of cash. I know there is a lot of resistance in some quarters, but we will make sure that this whole space has been, we've leveraged on technology to make sure that we can drive the reform and efficiency in this sector to ensure that we have better outcomes in the management of our security. I am very happy that we are already making progress in all the three fronts. On the reform front, we have legislation that is already in the House. We have legislation that has already been proposed. I want to encourage the implementation team to expedite the formulation of the different policy that have already been worked on, to complete and brush some of the legislation that has been proposed so that we can engage Parliament in the shortest time possible. On matters equipment, we already have rolled out the modernization of our police service. The first phase we already have equipment that have been purchased for use by our policemen and women, especially in the difficult areas that we have. And that process is ongoing. I committed that we're going to have a 20 billion shilling program to modernize our police. And now we're going to include the other two services as well, the prisons and the NYS, so that we give them the necessary tools for them to discharge their responsibility. I'm very happy that we have started this process. The first deliveries have already been received, and I just want to commit that we are committed to making sure that that process gets to its logical conclusion. Let me also say that we have concluded the procurement of the first 1,000 e-vehicles that will be used by our police and members of the National Government Administration. It is part of our response to making sure that even as we transport or improve the mobility of our men and women, we are also responding to matters climate change and making sure that we are aligned with the requirements of e-mobility. Let me also say that along the same area of making sure that we are equipping these services, already there are houses that are complete. In fact, I was being asked to go and open some for our policemen and our prison service and our National Youth Service. And the Ministry of Housing tell me that in our institutional housing program that we are undertaking under our housing agenda, 32,000 houses are being built for our security services, from the military to the NYS to the National Police Service and to the prison service. And I want to ask the PSS responsible here to make sure that they are in tandem and in line and in collaboration with the Ministry of Housing so that we can provide decent housing for our security men and women. We are aware that in some cases, some of our prison officers live in houses that are not so different from the prison itself. Because if an officer is living in a mud house, you know, the difference between a mud house and a prison is very small. And that cannot be the case. And that is the reason why we extended our housing program to include institutional houses for our military, for our police, for our NYS, and for our prisons. And I want to ask the three services to provide the land, and we are going to work with you. Already, our focus is to build 32,000 units for our security sector. We know that that is not adequate, but it is the first step as we modernize our housing program for our security agencies. And therefore, we want to match our word with what we are doing so that this sector that provides and underwrites our collective security and stability as a nation is better resourced to be able to discharge their mandate. Let me also say that as we move forward with these reforms, I want to urge each one of you to be fully on board and to join in mobilizing the people of Kenya to take part in this transformative journey. The success of these initiatives does not just depend on the actions of the government, but also on active participation and strong support from every segment of our society, from policy and strategic leadership to local community leaders, and from our brave men and women in uniform to the citizens that they serve. Out of the realization that everyone has a role to play, we shall employ an all-of-society approach to the implementation of this strategic framework. Let us therefore work closely together and complement one another to create an environment where our police, prisons, and youth services are not only respected and trusted by the people, but also integral to the communities that they serve. This is how we shall build a future where these institutions symbolize integrity and justice. I take this opportunity to affirm my full commitment to oversee these reforms and ensure that they are implemented to achieve the transformation of our security services into models of public trust and efficiency. Together, we have an opportunity to collaborate and to make sure that these reforms go beyond mere changes in policy and deliver meaningful improvements that will endure and inspire generations that will come after us. And I want to respectfully ask all the other arms of government, our parliament, our judiciary, independent institutions, to support these policy changes that we are making to our security sector, because the security sector is the guarantor for our democracy and rule of law. It is not possible for us to enforce the rule of law and to guarantee our democracy if our security sector is not up to its responsibility and mandate. And therefore, a whole of government approach in reforming our security sector, making sure that the institutions in our security sector have the requisite institutional backbone and framework to support its modernization, and the requisite tools and capabilities to undertake this huge and sacrosanct responsibility, but also the men and women who serve under terms and conditions that inspire them to discharge their responsibility. It is our collective duty as a nation to support, because our democracy is dependent on respect for the rule of law. And the rule of law is guaranteed by making sure that we have men and women who make sure that each and every one of us keeps to the straight and narrow and respects the rule of law. A country without respect for the rule of law will not and cannot guarantee itself as a democracy. Democracy runs on the engine of the rule of law. And that is why it is necessary for us to collectively and as a society and all arms of government support the security sector in making sure that they have the requisite capabilities to be able to undertake the responsibilities that they have been assigned. If we do this together, present and future generations of Kenyans will experience, appreciate, and celebrate the fruits of your commitment to the institution of sound, effective, professional, and ethical national security institutions that will guarantee peace and security as the foundational enablers of Kenya's economic transformation. It is very clear to me that together we can achieve this. And I want to ask all of us to work together selflessly for the good of the nation. I am acutely aware that the National Police Service is an independent institution, and so is the judiciary. But ultimately, we have one master, the people of Kenya. And we must make sure that we work together towards serving not interests of individuals, but the collective interest of the people of Kenya. And therefore, I want to ask for more collaboration, more working together, that the independence that we respect and enjoy must also look at how together, interdependently, can work towards achieving the greater interest and the greater good of the people of Kenya. So I really want to ask for a much more harmonious engagement and relationship between our different arms of government and also our different independent institutions, so that we keep focus not on what is good for one sector, but what is good for the greater good of the people of Kenya. Because that way we will be serving the interest of the Kenyan people. We must, by all means, defend our democracy and the rule of law. We must ensure that we also defend our independent institutions. But we must also ensure that we work together towards the common good of the people of Kenya, and that requires leadership that appreciates that our independence is for purposes of making sure that we serve the people of Kenya. It is not independence for any other purpose. It is for making sure that we draw the lines for us to operationally work towards working for the people of Kenya. And I want to ask for greater understanding, greater accommodation, greater intergovernmental and interagency collaboration for us to achieve what is good for the people of Kenya without necessarily disagreements that can jeopardize the greater good of the people of Kenya. So with this, I am very confident that the transformation, the institutional changes we are going to make, the policy changes we are going to make, the improvement in terms of conditions for service, and the whole capabilities and equipment and tools that will be made available to our security sector will help in making sure that our country continues to be a country based on the rule of law, and that also protects our democracy and the rights of every Kenyan. So I am very happy to be part of this occasion. I want to ask the chair and the members of the committee that will be charged with this implementation that I will be keeping tabs on the progress to make sure that what has happened with many task force reports, the famous gathering dust in some places, does not happen to this report. My very best wishes. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And with your permission, Your Excellency, one more item. We are honored to have you launch the strategic document, which will then be distributed. So if I may kindly request the following to join His Excellency and flank him as he will be pressing the buzzer to have the launch. The CS Interior, the CS Public Service, Acting IG, DIG Kenya, Commissioner General, Kenya Police Service, and Commandant General, National Youth Service, to flank His Excellency as the rest of us. Kindly let's sit down. We may take our seats, please. And at the count of 3, Your Excellency, you'll press the buzzer as we launch. In 3, 2, 1. Tupige makofi tafadhali. And while still on the platform, Your Excellency, I'll request that for a photo. Give me a cordless. Then we'll hand over the documents. We'll have His Excellency hand over documents to the